most concentrated nesting areas for American crocodiles in Florida and the United States.
The search is on this morning for an emotional support.
Florida is a state of swamps, canals, and sun-soaked wetlands where wildlife thrives in secret corners, often just out of sight of humans. And yet, something strange has been stirring in these quiet waters. Crocodiles seem to have vanished, even seasoned wildlife experts scratching their heads. Observers who used to see these reptiles basking lazily along canals now report empty banks. It's subtle, eerie, and entirely believable for anyone who knows how these creatures live. But it's also a story that demands explanation. A silent vanishing in the Sunshine State. The truth starts with a reality check. The American crocodile, Florida's native species, has always been a rare sight. Unlike the common alligator, which swarms the swamps in seemingly endless numbers, crocodiles are the introverts of the reptile world.
And typically avoid areas with a lot of human activity. Crocodile sightings in Florida have increased in recent years as the crocodile population has increased.
According to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC, the population of adult American crocodiles in the state numbers somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000. That's not a misprint. That's for the entire state, excluding hatchlings. Spread over thousands of miles of coast, rivers, and wetlands, they are naturally elusive, simply because there aren't many of them. To anyone expecting the density of alligators, their absence can feel downright alarming. One week, a biologist might spot 3 or 4 individuals in a familiar stretch of mangrove. The next, none at all. Part of what makes these disappearances so unnerving is the crocodile's behavior. These are not attention-seeking creatures. They are shy, reclusive, and carefully tuned to avoid humans. They tend to avoid people, as researchers note, slipping silently into shadows and muddy waters where cameras and casual observers are unlikely to follow. Even within protected habitats, state parks, wildlife refuges, and conservation areas, they go unnoticed much of the time. It's not that they've been stolen, eaten, or mysteriously teleported. It's that they've always been good at being invisible. And yet, for residents who are used to hearing the occasional splash, seeing them slide into canals, or spotting them sunning themselves along mangrove banks, the current silence is unnerving. Adding to the mystery is the American crocodile's mobility. Recent research, released in 2025, shows that some Florida crocodiles are long-distance travelers. They don't just stick to their birth ponds or favorite lagoons, they move, sometimes hundreds of miles, along waterways and canal systems. A crocodile spotted in one county might turn up weeks later in a completely different wetland system. For humans, this makes it seem like crocodiles are disappearing, when in reality they're merely relocating, slipping through a complex network of natural and artificial waterways, taking paths that aren't easily observed. These stealthy journeys mean that the sightings that once reassured residents are no longer a reliable measure of population health. The crocodile's world is fluid, literally, and our human eyes are stationary. But there's more than just mobility and reclusive behavior at play. Florida's environment itself is constantly shifting. Coastal development, rising sea levels, and expanding urban areas are altering the natural habitats that crocodiles depend on. Mangrove forests are trimmed, canals are rerouted, and waterways are polluted with runoff from nearby roads and cities. Each change forces crocodiles to adapt, moving farther into less accessible areas, or even abandoning stretches of water they once frequented. To a casual observer, this looks like disappearance, a sudden void where apex predators once reigned. But in truth, it's a survival strategy, a quiet relocation in response to human expansion and environmental stress. And there's an element of time perception here too. Crocodiles are slow to reproduce, mature late, and maintain stable territories once established. This means their population numbers fluctuate gradually, not dramatically. A single year with few sightings might feel like a crisis to the public, but biologists understand that crocodile populations ebb and flow naturally. Still, when low population density meets elusive behavior and habitat disruption, the result is exactly what makes headlines: a mysterious disappearance. The narrative is irresistible. Ancient, lurking predators vanish almost overnight, creating suspense, even though the reality is far subtler. Yet despite all the logical explanations, there's something undeniably eerie about the quiet waters. Longtime residents of southern Florida canals, Everglades tour guides, and fishermen report a feeling, almost instinctive, that the crocodiles aren't where they should be. In a region where wildlife usually makes its presence known through splashes, tracks, or simple visual sightings, the silence is palpable. It feels like a holding pattern, a calm before some unseen shift, even if scientists can explain most of it through numbers, behavior, and habitat changes. There's a reason humans are drawn to mysteries, and the missing crocodiles provide one of the most believable yet spine-chilling enigmas Florida has seen. In many ways, the crocodiles haven't actually gone anywhere. They are still here, slipping silently through mangrove roots, canal networks, and secluded ponds. But for the casual observer, for anyone expecting to see a toothy head bobbing in the sun, the absence is very real and very haunting. The disappearing crocodiles of Florida are a reminder that nature doesn't conform to human expectations, that apex predators can vanish from sight without leaving a trace, and that even in the modern world, mysteries endure. But as officials dug deeper into the wetlands' secrets, a far more sinister pattern began to emerge, one that pointed not to nature, but to something stalking it. And that's where the darker threat comes in. Poachers lurking in Florida's shadows. This next revelation is about something darker, something that doesn't slink silently through the mangroves on its own, but walks upright and carries guns, traps, and a willingness to break the law. While American crocodiles are masters of elusiveness, there's a growing concern among authorities and wildlife experts that humans may be playing a role in their disappearance, one far more sinister than simply hiding or moving along waterways. The American crocodile is a rare and threatened species already living on the edge of survival. With the roughly 1,500 to 2,000 adults in Florida, every individual matters. A single poaching incident can ripple through a local population, leaving noticeable gaps in the waterways where these apex predators once ruled. And it's not just a theoretical risk. Illegal hunting does happen. Crocodiles are coveted for their leather, prized in luxury goods, belts, handbags, and shoes. They are also targeted for the exotic pet trade, where collectors pay thousands for a wild-caught adult. On rare occasions, they become trophies, chosen simply for the thrill of capturing a powerful prehistoric predator. What makes this threat so chilling is the stealth involved. Poachers know the terrain is hostile, and the laws are strict. The American crocodile is protected under both state and federal law, and violations can lead to severe fines or jail time.
Wildlife investigators are honing in on a group they say is poaching gators.
One of them has been charged and 3 others are being sought in this case over on the coast.
But that hasn't stopped a few determined individuals. They know where to find these animals: remote swamps, mangrove-lined canals, and secluded estuaries. They strike quietly, often at night, leaving few signs behind. And for wildlife officers patrolling these areas, detecting even one illegal removal is like trying to catch a shadow. Authorities have had some success catching poachers in the past, but those incidents are often the exception rather than the rule. Over the years, confiscated crocodiles, injured animals, and reports from vigilant residents have painted a picture of a small, persistent black market. Each of these incidents is minor in isolation, But when combined with natural population scarcity and the crocodile's reclusive behavior, it creates a situation that looks like a mysterious disappearance. For locals, it's hard to distinguish between natural vanishing acts and human interference. One week, a crocodile slides silently into the canal. The next, it's gone. And while it could have simply moved, the possibility of a human hand is never far from mind. Poaching doesn't happen in isolation either. It's amplified by environmental pressures. Urban development and habitat loss push crocodiles closer to human activity, making them more visible and, unfortunately, more vulnerable. Canals that were once quiet sanctuaries become highways of opportunity for illegal hunters. Climate change, rising sea levels, and fluctuating water levels force crocodiles to relocate, sometimes into areas that are easier for poachers to access. This creates the perfect storm, an already rare and shy species forced into contact with humans, in locations where opportunistic illegal hunters lurk. The human threat adds a layer of tension to what is already a compelling natural mystery. Consider the psychology of the poacher, the thrill of taking an apex predator, the lure of profit, and the secrecy required to evade authorities. It's a cat-and-mouse game that plays out across Florida's wetlands, where every splash could signal life or death. For researchers, the challenge is immense. They have to determine whether a missing crocodile was simply hiding, moved to a new location, or was taken illegally. The subtlety of these animals' behavior makes the distinction nearly impossible without advanced tracking techniques. And yet, there are clues. Wildlife officers sometimes find snares, traps, or makeshift enclosures, evidence that someone has been tampering with the environment. Injuries inconsistent with natural causes, bullet wounds, spear marks, or cut injuries provide grim proof of human interference. When combined with a sudden absence in areas where crocodiles were previously abundant, these signs suggest that poaching is more than a possibility. It's a tangible threat. Each confiscated crocodile or injured animal is a reminder of how vulnerable these creatures are, even in a modern, heavily patrolled state like Florida. The poaching narrative also fuels public fascination. Stories of vanishing crocodiles are sensational enough on their own, but when a human hand is added, when greed, thrill, or negligence might be involved, the mystery becomes darker and more riveting. Social media and local news outlets sometimes amplify these fears, showing images of empty canals or distant glimmers of scaly backs, prompting speculation and concern. In this way, poaching becomes both a real threat and a storytelling device, bridging the gap between scientific observation and public imagination. Yet, even in this dark scenario, hope exists. Conservationists and authorities are ramping up monitoring efforts using drones, camera traps, GPS tagging, and public reporting networks to catch poachers and protect the remaining crocodiles. Awareness campaigns encourage locals to report suspicious activity, reinforcing the idea that these ancient predators are under community protection. The American crocodile, though vulnerable, is resilient. Each individual saved from illegal capture represents not just survival, but a victory for conservation and the ongoing story of Florida's wetlands. The combined forces of natural elusiveness, long-distance mobility, and human interference make Florida's crocodiles one of the state's most enigmatic species. They vanish from view, sometimes for natural reasons, sometimes because of poachers, leaving humans guessing. And perhaps that's part of their allure, the idea that, despite our technology and laws, apex predators can slip silently through shadows, defying our expectations and reminding us of a world that operates on its own terms. The story of missing crocodiles is not a single explanation, but a layered mystery. It's about nature's stealth, humans' greed, and the delicate balance that allows these ancient creatures to survive. For every splash that goes unseen, for every canal emptied of its silent rulers, there's a question lingering. How many crocodiles are hiding, moving, or have been taken? And how many are left to keep the waterways their own? The story didn't stop with lost wildlife. Soon, reports hinted at a far more disturbing pattern, one that forced authorities to rethink everything. And that's where the next question hits hard. Maybe the crocodiles are driving away people, especially tourists? Missing crocs or missing tourists. Florida is known for its sunshine, beaches, theme parks, and endless outdoor adventures, but it also has a wild side that causes unexpected problems for visitors and new residents. Crocodiles, along with other large wildlife, are an important part of the state's natural ecosystem. Yet their presence sometimes creates challenges for tourism, everyday living, and the constant wave of people moving into the state. While Florida promotes itself as a tropical paradise, sharing space with large predators can bring safety fears, property issues, and economic effects that quietly shape the way people see the state. Tourism is one of Florida's biggest sources of income, and millions of travelers arrive every year expecting safe beaches, calm waters, and family-friendly activities. But when crocodiles show up in areas where people gather, it can change how tourists behave. Even though crocodile attacks are rare, the idea of danger alone can influence travel plans. A single sighting near a popular beach, canal, or marina can lead to temporary closures, news reports, and social media warnings. All of this can make people, especially families with children, avoid certain places altogether. Businesses that rely on outdoor traffic, like kayak rentals, boat tours, and beach shops, may see fewer customers the moment fear spreads. Going back a little about the attacks, they are seldom, but it doesn't mean nothing ever happened. Attacks by large reptiles in Florida, while rare, have occurred and occasionally resulted in serious injury or even death. The majority of these incidents involve the American alligator rather than crocodiles, but there are documented cases of American crocodile attacks in the state. Though crocodiles are generally more elusive and less aggressive toward humans, their growing populations in certain areas have led to occasional encounters that capture public attention and raise safety concerns. One notable example took place on March 10, 2024, when a 68-year-old man in Everglades National Park was by a crocodile after his sailboat capsized.
A man in Florida, aka a Florida man, is sharing his story of an attack by a rare American crocodile in Everglades National Park over the weekend. He was bitten.
The man suffered a leg injury that required hospitalization. While this incident was not fatal, it served as a reminder that crocodiles, though typically shy, can pose a real risk when humans unknowingly enter their territory. Earlier, in 2014, two swimmers in a Miami area canal became the first people in the United States officially recorded as being bitten by wild American crocodiles. Fortunately, both survived the encounter, but the event marked an unprecedented warning about the potential for human-crocodile interactions in populated areas of Florida. While crocodile attacks are exceptionally uncommon, alligator incidents are more frequent, though still relatively rare considering the millions of people who live in and visit Florida each year.
The FWC Division of Law Enforcement is one of the strongest forces for conservation in the nation. These are highly trained, versatile law enforcement officers.
Since record-keeping began in 1948, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC, has documented hundreds of unprovoked alligator-human encounters. These range from minor injuries to serious attacks, and some have resulted in fatalities. One of the most widely publicized and tragic cases occurred in 2016, when a 2-year-old boy visiting Disney World was attacked and by an alligator near the resort's waters. This heartbreaking incident drew worldwide attention and highlighted the importance of respecting wildlife, even in areas designed for tourism and recreation. The data show that while fatalities are extremely rare, the potential danger is real. Most attacks are linked to risky human behavior rather than unprovoked aggression by the animals themselves. Swimming in areas where crocodilians are known to inhabit, venturing too close to water edges at night, or leaving pets unattended near wetlands dramatically increases the likelihood of an encounter. Wildlife experts emphasize that both crocodiles and alligators generally avoid humans when possible, and attacks usually occur when the animals feel threatened, cornered, or attracted by food. Authorities and conservation organizations use these incidents as teaching moments to promote safety and awareness. Signs are placed along waterways, lakes, and canals, warning of potential wildlife encounters, and the public is encouraged to report sightings to authorities. Educational campaigns teach residents and tourists how to coexist safely with Florida's large reptiles. Keeping a respectful distance, avoiding swimming in unmonitored areas, and not feeding wildlife are essential precautions. Despite the rare but real danger, millions of residents and visitors safely enjoy Florida's waterways every year by following these guidelines. Outdoor activities are a huge part of the Florida experience. Families often come expecting to enjoy paddleboarding, fishing, swimming in natural springs, or riding airboats through the wetlands. But when crocodiles appear in these areas, many tourists simply skip the activity or cancel their plans. Some tours are forced to shut down temporarily until wildlife officers remove or relocate the animals, and this pause can affect not just business owners, but the workers who depend on tourism season for income. Over time, these disruptions can quietly damage Florida's tourist-friendly image. In a world where online reviews and viral posts shape public opinion, even exaggerated stories of crocodile encounters can make Florida seem dangerous to people who have never lived near large wildlife. The presence of crocodiles also affects migration into Florida. The state has been one of the fastest growing in the country, attracting new residents with its warm weather, low taxes, and relaxed lifestyle. But many of these newcomers come from places where large predators do not exist. They imagine a peaceful, vacation-like life until they discover warning signs around lakes, nighttime wildlife patrols, and the occasional crocodile lounging near a backyard pool. For someone not used to this type of wildlife, it can feel overwhelming. Families with children or pets often become especially cautious and may choose not to buy homes near lakes or canals, even though these areas are usually very desirable. Real estate values can also be affected by wildlife presence. Waterfront homes are typically expensive, but buyers may hesitate when they learn that crocodiles are common in the area. Concerns about safety, fencing requirements, and the possibility of wildlife wandering into yards can slow down property sales. Insurance policies sometimes include additional instructions or restrictions when a home is located near wildlife zones, and these details can discourage potential buyers. As a result, neighborhoods with higher wildlife activity may experience slower growth or slightly weaker demand compared to similar areas without these concerns. Living with crocodiles also brings daily lifestyle challenges. Residents must secure their trash to avoid attracting animals. Walking pets near any body of water becomes risky, especially in early morning or late evening. Parents need to closely supervise children whenever they are outdoors. Even swimming pools require extra fencing or screenings in some locations to prevent wildlife from accidentally wandering in. People who move to Florida expecting an easygoing beach town life sometimes feel stressed by the constant need to stay alert. Crocodile sightings in residential areas also create tension within communities. Wildlife officers receive frequent calls from concerned homeowners, and city councils often face pressure to increase patrols or take stronger action. At the same time, there are residents who value wildlife and want to protect it, which can lead to disagreements about how to handle growing crocodile populations. These debates can become political and emotionally charged. In some cases, frustrated residents eventually consider leaving Florida because they feel the balance between safety and wildlife has become too difficult to manage. Beyond the emotional and social concerns, crocodiles also bring economic and environmental complications. The state spends significant resources monitoring crocodile populations, relocating aggressive individuals, putting up warning signs, and educating the public. These efforts are necessary but costly, and taxpayers ultimately support them. Certain waterfront areas also face restrictions to ensure public safety, which can affect how communities develop. Construction near lakes and canals may require special precautions, and some recreational areas may be permanently limited or changed to prevent dangerous interactions. These rules can slow down development or frustrate property owners. Pets and even small livestock can be at risk near crocodile habitats, and when incidents happen, they often gain major media attention. These emotional stories, even if they are uncommon, shape how people think about wildlife in Florida. A dramatic headline about a pet being taken can influence public opinion far more powerfully than statistics showing that serious incidents are rare. As fear spreads, property values and outdoor habits often shift in subtle ways. One of the most underrated effects of crocodile presence is psychological. Even if encounters are not common, simply knowing that predators live nearby creates constant awareness. People may hesitate to enjoy lakes, walk around at night, or explore natural areas. This low-level tension, especially for newcomers or tourists, shapes how they feel about the state. Florida remains beautiful but unpredictable, relaxing yet wild in ways that many visitors did not fully expect. Despite these challenges, it is important to remember that crocodiles are a protected species, and their return is considered a success story for conservation. As the disappearances shook the state, Florida knew it couldn't wait any longer. Action was needed. New protections, tougher laws, and lingering fears. As the mystery of Florida's missing crocodiles gripped the state, authorities and lawmakers realized that they could no longer treat the situation as an isolated incident. What had begun as a few strange disappearances had grown into a full-blown crisis, raising alarm among scientists, residents, and tourism operators alike. Wetlands that were once considered safe for both humans and wildlife suddenly felt unpredictable. In response, Florida's wildlife agencies and government leaders rolled out a series of immediate and long-term measures designed to protect the animals, safeguard the public, and prevent further incidents. The urgency of the response reflected not only the ecological importance of these reptiles, but also the social and economic consequences of their sudden absence. Wildlife officers, tasked with monitoring crocodile populations, increased their patrols throughout the state's wetlands and waterways. In areas where crocodile activity had been high, officers installed motion sensor cameras, night vision equipment, and even drones to track animal movement and detect illegal human activity. Teams began conducting more frequent inspections of canals, lakes, and riverbanks, looking for signs of traps, snares, or other evidence of poaching. These heightened measures were as much about public reassurance as they were about enforcement. By making their presence visible, authorities hoped to calm the anxiety of local residents and tourists who had been unnerved by the sudden disappearance of such iconic wildlife. At the same time, Florida lawmakers moved to strengthen protections against poaching and the illegal wildlife trade. Penalties for capturing, harming, or trafficking crocodiles and other protected species were increased significantly, reflecting the seriousness of these crimes. Violators faced higher fines, longer prison sentences, and the possibility of losing hunting or boating privileges. In addition, the state closed loopholes in permit regulations that had previously allowed the private ownership of exotic and dangerous animals, making it much harder for poachers to operate under the radar. These legislative changes sent a clear message. Florida would no longer tolerate exploitation of its fragile ecosystems, and anyone attempting to profit from wildlife would face swift consequences. Alongside these government actions, local communities took a more active role in monitoring and protecting their environment. Neighborhood groups in areas near lakes, canals, and wetlands began collaborating with wildlife officers to report sightings of both crocodiles and suspicious human activity. Residents were encouraged to note anything unusual: strange boats in the middle of the night, unfamiliar individuals near water bodies, or signs of traps. Community-led patrols, combined with state enforcement, created a network of observation that significantly reduced poaching opportunities and strengthened the relationship between citizens and wildlife authorities. Educational campaigns were also launched, teaching residents and visitors how to safely coexist with crocodiles, recognize warning signs, and understand the importance of the species to the ecosystem. Informational signs appeared along popular rivers, canals, and hiking paths, reminding the public to respect wildlife boundaries and never attempt to approach or feed the animals. Tourism, a major economic driver for Florida, was one of the areas most affected by the crisis. Many visitors, unfamiliar with crocodile behavior and fearful of encounters, canceled trips or avoided certain attractions. In response, local tourism boards partnered with wildlife authorities to provide accurate information and safety guidelines. Brochures, websites, and social media posts were used to reassure tourists that protected areas were monitored, dangerous zones were clearly marked, and educational tours offered safe ways to experience wildlife. Hotels, resorts, and outdoor recreational companies also implemented safety protocols, such as adding secure fencing, offering guided tours instead of unsupervised activities, and training staff on wildlife response. These efforts were not only necessary for visitor safety, but also critical for preserving Florida's image as a welcoming and adventurous travel destination. Despite these proactive measures, lingering fears persisted among residents and tourists alike. Even in areas deemed safe, people remained cautious when near waterways, pools, or canals. Parents closely supervised their children. Pet owners kept animals on leashes or away from the water, and outdoor enthusiasts often altered their plans to avoid potentially risky locations. Some residents chose to move farther away from wetlands, preferring suburban or urban neighborhoods where encounters were less likely. For many, the memory of the missing crocodiles became a lasting reminder of the delicate balance between humans and nature, a balance that could shift at any moment if precautions were ignored. The missing crocodiles also highlighted broader issues related to human encroachment on natural habitats. As Florida's population grows, wetlands and waterways are increasingly intersected by housing developments, roads, and commercial projects. These changes reduce the space available for wildlife, increasing the chance of conflict. Authorities recognized that protecting crocodiles required not just policing illegal activity, but also managing habitat conservation and land use. Programs to restore mangroves, preserve wetlands, and create safe corridors for wildlife movement became part of the state's long-term strategy. These efforts, while more subtle than laws or patrols, were crucial for ensuring that crocodiles and humans could coexist without continual crises. In addition to conservation and enforcement, public communication became a central tool in calming fears and shaping perceptions. Officials held press conferences, issued updates, and engaged with local media to ensure accurate reporting. Misinformation and sensationalism, common when mysterious disappearances make headlines, were countered with facts, statistics, and expert commentary. By involving scientists, ecologists, and wildlife experts, the state created a narrative that acknowledged the seriousness of the situation while also highlighting the steps being taken to resolve it. Transparency helped maintain public trust and encouraged cooperation from communities directly affected by the incidents. Economically, the state recognized that protecting crocodiles was intertwined with protecting livelihoods. Outdoor tour operators, fishing guides, and hospitality businesses relied on safe, predictable natural areas to attract customers. By investing in protections, enforcement, and public education, Florida aimed not only to safeguard the animals, but also to stabilize the local economy. At the same time, authorities understood that fear could not be entirely eliminated. Some level of caution and vigilance would always remain part of life near the wetlands. Accepting this reality became part of the state's message. Coexistence with powerful wildlife is possible, but it requires awareness, respect, and ongoing effort. Florida's reaction to the missing crocodiles was multifaceted. Lawmakers strengthened laws and penalties. Wildlife officers expanded monitoring and patrols. Communities became more active in reporting and education, and tourism operators adapted to ensure visitor safety. Yet, despite these measures, a sense of unease lingered. The empty riverbanks, the silence in the mangroves, and the thought of what had been lost served as a constant reminder.
And it's where Fish and Wildlife officers say 4 men, after illegally capturing them on the river, alligators here.
That humans and wildlife share a fragile coexistence. Florida's wetlands may have recovered in part, but the memory of the missing crocodiles and the lessons learned from their disappearance would remain long after the immediate crisis passed. For more wildlife stories like this, subscribe to the channel and leave your comments below.